Well, this is a big week for the Giants. In the next 6 days, it's going to go a long way in deciding whether or not the Giants are a playoff team. Joining me to discuss this is Giants reporter and host John Schmeelk joining us once again. John, good to see you again, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this is really a big week here for the Giants because, I mean, it can kind of go either way. What's amazing is that the division is still in play, amazingly. But if they win and they get some help, by Monday night, they could actually have clinched a playoff berth. But if things go south, by Thursday, which is their following game against the Eagles, they could be almost on the outside of the playoffs looking in, needing help.
And this is how tight the NFC playoff race really is. The Giants can still be the number one seed in the entire conference, or they could be out of the playoffs. They have 2 games in the next 5 days. Lions on Sunday, at Philadelphia, a division rival on Thursday night. If those games go right, the Giants will be sitting pretty heading to the playoffs for the first time in 5 years.
Well, to make that happen, Eli Manning's got to pick this up. And that has kind of been a topic of conversation this week. In his past 3 games, he hasn't thrown for 200 yards. However, the Lions allow the highest completion percentage in the NFL. If it's time for, if he's going to get hot, this should be the week where he gets hot.
At least in terms of completing passes, yes. But in the last 7 games, the Lions have not allowed more than 20 points in any one of those games. In the last 7 weeks, the Lions and the Giants, believe it or not, are the top 2 scoring defenses in the NFL. This could be a real defensive struggle for both of these offenses this week.
But in regards to Eli, is there anything that you're hearing from him this week that makes you believe he could turn that corner?
Yeah, I spoke to him for about 10 minutes. You'll hear half of it on the WFAN pregame show on Sunday before the game. And I talked to him about what's been going wrong with the offense. And he stressed to me that it's not a consistent problem. It's always somebody making a mistake. And it's not necessarily a mental error. It could be a physical error. Odell Beckham dropping his touchdown pass. The ball coming out of Eli Manning's hand when he tried to hit a wide-open Roger Lewis for a touchdown. A player running a wrong route, fumbling a ball, whatever. And it's always somebody different. An offensive lineman not getting enough protection to give Eli time to throw the ball. Somebody is always making a mistake. It's not always the same person. It's not multiple people on the same play. But it's those little errors that are short-circuiting this offense.
Okay, well, what does it say about a team that should be a playoff? And if they get to the playoffs, the way that this team is built, they should at least be considered as a Super Bowl contender. And what does it say about that kind of a team that's still making those kind of focus errors late in the season?
It tells you that the defense has been so good that it's able to make up for the errors and mistakes and lack of production on offense, to be honest with you, because you're right. These last 3 games, they haven't gained more than 300 yards in any of those games. And 2 of those games are against teams without great defenses in the Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns.
And they're not able to run the ball. This is something, again, we've continued to say week in and week out. It's been tough sledding as they've been trying to get this ground game going. The 4-minute offense against the Cowboys didn't work. Again, they won the game, so it's all good. However, how difficult is it to imagine them making a deep playoff run if they can't have an effective ground game?
I'm going to harken back here to 2011. Heading into the playoffs when the Giants won their last Super Bowl, they were the worst rushing team in the league. Dead last. That's about where they sit right now. In fact, they're on pace to average their fewest rushing yards per game as a franchise since the 1940s. So there is hope. Much like in 2011, they gained 100 yards in the playoffs in a couple of those games on the way to the Super Bowl. Maybe they can turn it around. It starts with the offensive line. And then last week, I looked at the tape after the game. The running backs had some holes, and they made some bad decisions as well. So there is a equal opportunity here at blame to go around for figuring out the issues there.
And all the blame seemingly lands on the offensive side of the ball, and the results are not good. Right now, the Giants only average 2.5 trips to the red zone per game. That's 3rd lowest in the NFL. I mean, at some point, this team has got to be able to turn this around.
And that's all about sustaining long drives. And that, going back to the mistakes, it's always a penalty, a drop pass, a mental error. One of those things always seems to short-circuit these drives. And when you're not getting into the red zone enough, like you just mentioned, you can make up for that if you're getting big play scores. And they have a player that can do it in Odell Beckham Jr., but they're right now 23rd in the NFL in passing yards completed over 20 yards. So they're not making those big plays to make up for those lack of red zone opportunities.
And you know that those big plays can change the course of a game. At least they have a playmaker that can do that. But there's amazing similarities here between the Giants and the Lions. You actually even did a piece on this week. The Giants have won 7 of 8. The Lions 8 of 9. Neither team can run the ball. Both of these defenses have come on strong. Both are 9 and 4. They really are kind of the mirror image of one another. But does either of them have a stronger pedigree?
And they've both played a ton of close games. And to me, that's what jumped out to me this week. The Lions have been in 12 games decided by 7 points or less. They're 8 and 4. The Giants have been in 10 games decided by 7 points or less. They're 8 and 2. So these two teams are where they are because they're winning close games. The Giants' defense has closed teams out. The Lions' offense, on the other hand, Matthew Stafford leads the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks. Right. So something's got to give this week.
Well, that's the whole thing. And I think that's the fun narrative of this whole thing. We can almost throw the first 3 quarters out and just focus on what happens in the fourth because the Lions have 8 fourth quarter comebacks and the Giants obviously have been able to finally figure out how to hold. So this is an offense that's figured out how to win in the fourth versus a defense that's figured out how to hold them in the fourth.
I feel bad for the fans. It's going to be raining. It's only going to be 50 degrees.
Right.
But you're not leaving this game early. This game's going to be close. Right. It's going to be late. And how about this number? The Lions have trailed in the fourth quarter in 12 of their 13 games this year.
Amazing.
The fact that they're 9 and 4 is a Christmas miracle.
And, well, a lot of that has to do with Matt Stafford, though. This week it's not good for him because he has a dislocated finger on his throwing hand. So clearly that's going to affect his velocity, maybe his accuracy, maybe even just being able to get the ball. It's probably going to affect it some way their strategy. Their game plan has to change. In some way as well, could that hurt the Giants because the Lions are going to be throwing out plays the Giants haven't seen at all this year?
Yeah, and the trick is we really don't know how this is going to affect Matthew Stafford. And quite frankly, do the Lions know? Have they been out there practicing in rainy conditions to see how he can grip the ball with this weird glove they've constructed for him where only his one bad finger is covered, the other 4 fingers are bare? Are they going to have to do something different because they're in the rain outdoors? I don't think anybody knows. So I think this is going to be a feeling out process for both the Lions and the Giants when they get out there in those wet conditions on Sunday.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is that this is not an outdoor team. We're talking about the Lions. So far, the Lions are 0-2 this year in outdoor games. And their last time they played outdoors was way back in week 4. So these conditions are going to be rainy. It's going to be 50 degrees. It seems like it should favor the Giants.
Yeah, and the irony of it, we talked about this last week when they were going to play the Cowboys, and it did snow right before the game. It was a slick field, slick balls. But really, when you look at how the game went down between the Giants and Cowboys last week, yeah, Dak Prescott played poorly, mostly because of the great Giants defense. But you saw more mistakes that were obviously due to conditions to me from the Giants than you saw from Dallas. Eli Manning, like I mentioned earlier, had Roger Lewis wide open for a touchdown. The ball just flies out of his hands on his pass, and it's a fumble the Cowboys recovered, and it's a turnover. Odell Beckham dropped 2 passes, one of which could have went for a touchdown. Victor Cruz dropped a pass that hit him right in the chest. So was that because of conditions? Were those mental errors? I don't know. But, again, it all depends which team handles it well. I will say this. Even with the bad finger, Matthew Stafford has one of the best arms in the NFL.
Sure. He
can sling it. I was at the Pro Bowl a couple years ago, and Matthew Stafford was there. And the players would joke about trying to catch the Stafford ball because it hit their hands so hard, and he threw such a hard ball, it could be really hard to catch. So it'll be curious to see how that velocity, like you mentioned, will be affected by not only the conditions, but also his finger.
John Schmeelk, always great to see you once again. Thanks so much for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, stick around. We'll be right back.